So tomorrow, on September 13th, Korn will be releasing their 13th studio album. That's crazy. That's like one record every 2 years on average. There's not a lot of bands that do that, especially in this genre of alternative metal. And yes, of course, as basically any artist you can think of, they had some hiccups, not every record was perfect and it wasn't to everybody's liking, but they did have a bumpy road. They had 2 band members leave, one of them came back, so it wasn't that simple, but yet they managed to be very productive and pump out a record very regularly. If you think about bands like Slipknot, Deftones, none of those bands really did that. And Korn have this iconic status now, basically. Like, if you think about Metallica, it doesn't matter what they release now because they have such a huge back catalog of music, that their fan base is enormous. And even if now they release a record that everybody's gonna hate, it's not gonna matter. They will still gather stadiums of people. Korn is pretty much in the same position now, they can do whatever they want, they can experiment, and they can fail or not, and they will still gather stadiums. That being said, the record sounds promising so far. I've heard 2 songs. I know that there was recently another one released, but I have not heard that. I want to wait for the album. And overall, the idea of new metal is pretty much gone. I think that those bands that really started it were kind of unique in their own way. If you're gonna compare, like, who started it all, of course it's Korn, right? Then Deftones, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot after that. But they were all kind of different. They had there are some similarities, but you cannot put a Korn record and confuse it with Deftones. You cannot confuse Limp Bizkit with Slipknot. There is no way. And the genre just got too big for its own good. Of course, the labels got involved and were interested in bands that are on the more mellow side, on more melodic side, and that would make a watered down idea of Korn, for example. And that's where the genre suffered the most. Ultimately, that was its downfall. But the bands that started that thing are still active today because they are the ones that people follow. They are not the followers, that's the thing. That's what any artist should aim to be, they should just create a following, not just follow something that's been done before. Not to say that nu metal was completely not inspired by something, mostly anything was, but I believe these 4 bands managed to really hold their own. And there is just no way you can confuse Korn with something else, or Deftones, for example. Slipknot have a very distinctive sound. This is just a proof that the genre did start in the right place. It started in a creative place, with creative bands behind it all. It fell apart for the reasons I mentioned just a minute ago. Besides, it's important to think of how many bands were inspired by these bands throughout the years. There's probably not a single new band that came out in the last 10-15 years that have not been inspired by one of these bands. Nobody's talking about that, It's so strange to me. Because they managed to stay relevant for such a long time. That's a testament to their work and their legacy. I know there are some newer bands that are considered to be new metal, like I heard this Dead band, right? They have a music video directed by Fred Durst. But there is nothing new to the sound, to be honest. You cannot do anything new with it. It's done. You cannot do it better. I feel like people should just let it go. It's in the past. And in 2019 there is no need for new metal because we still have these iconic bands that are still around. We still have Deftones, we still have Korn, we still have Slipknot that released a good record and put themselves on the map once again by taking number 1 position in UK and in US, I believe. I think it was 3 countries overall. So metal is back on the map. With Tool coming back, metal is in a really great place in general right now. So that's great to see because people have been talking about rock being dead. Well, rock is a different story. That's a different topic. But heavy music, metal music is in a really good place right now. So that's very promising. Since Slipknot do not release records as often as Korn do, it's more of a reason to celebrate. Korn release records really regularly, so it's not as exciting, of course, but still the sound they have right now is very, it surprisingly sounds kind of fresh. I was surprised by the 2 records I heard so far, particularly Cold. Limp Bizkit are also working on new music. Well, they have been working on it for a long time, but now we actually heard some music recently, so that's promising as well. Marilyn Manson also is working on a new album, so all of these artists that were huge in 90s and early 2000s are kind of back. I mean, they never really left, you know, but it just kind of wasn't the same for some reason. And I think this situation with Slipknot and shortly after with Tool's return is really a nail in the coffin. What I mean is Slipknot outselling Ed Sheeran and Tool outselling Taylor Swift, about which all the Taylor Swift fans were pissed, which is not a surprise because their fans are known to be very immature. Kind of disgusting. I don't want to talk about it. But now it just feels like metal is back on the map. But really, metal was always there. I never felt deprived of heavy music. If you seek it out, you could always find it. There are plenty of great bands that came out in recent 10 years or so. Bands like Tesseract, Sky Harbor, Carnival can come to mind, you know? Periphery, of course. To sum it up, I think Korn are in a great position right now, and I think very much like Slipknot, they are probably very excited to be where they are, and I am glad they are still making music and will be making music for many years to come. As for new metal, I think the labels should be dropped at this point because these bands have proved themselves as their own thing. It's not necessary to label them anymore. Korn is Korn, Deftones is Deftones, even though this label was dropped for them quite early on, just after the first 2 records. Even Limp Bizkit, it's just they are doing their own thing. There's no need for labels anymore. But I have a bunch of videos of this. There are series I have on my channel that are called Rise and Fall of New Metal, where I talk about all these bands in more detail, and many more bands like Stained and Mudvayne I did recently, Static X. Even Static X is back. who would have thought, right? And an album is coming from them as well. That's crazy. With Wayne on the record. That's wow. So yeah, these are my 2 cents. Waiting for the Korn's album tomorrow. Can't wait to hear it. I hope you are excited as well. One thing, there was this ridiculous comment, and it was kind of supported for a song by Korn, Cold, right? And somebody said in the comments that the song sounds like Gent. That's such a stupid comment to make. It's like saying Meshuggah sounds like Gent. It's the other way around. Gent sounds like Meshuggah. Gent sounds like Korn. Don't get it twisted. What do you think about that? Does it make sense to you to say that Korn sounds like something that was created after Korn did the 7-string thing and basically was a pioneer, very much like Meshuggah was? Anyway, thank you for your time. If you like, leave a like, subscribe. I'm sorry I haven't been uploading for a bit, but I'm still working on a video about Tool and their first record, Undertow, and it's gonna be kind of different. It's gonna be similar to the recent Mudvayne video I did, that I put a lot of effort into that, and this one is even more so. So that would be uploaded to my channel hopefully within 2 weeks. It's taken much more time than I anticipated. But anyway, thank you and stay metal. Take care.